Staring at a video can be tiring. I get that. As a student, as an educator, we are in video conferences, Zoom calls, online lectures. It feels like all day long. And sometimes it really is. And to spice up things a little bit and to change it and to maybe have more social interaction, I came up with different perspectives and angles, and not in a metaphorical way, in a literal way. So let's change our learning perspectives, our camera angles a little bit, and here's what I have in mind. My name is Hendrik and I make videos about higher education and video-based learning. In this video, I will show you different perspectives and camera angles, how to spice up your next Zoom call, live stream, or online lecture. Some of those perspectives are well known, some are not. All perspectives have a low-tech approach, so to speak. So basically, you need a camera and a tripod. So camera-wise, we're already in the first perspective. The major moderator host B-roll. For your teaching, this means put yourself into it between your slides, so to speak. Do not just show your slides and be there in the beginning and in the end. Be there like a star formation. Come back once in a while to that B-roll shot and show yourself. This is way more tangible and creates way more social interaction than the "do you have a question?" The second approach is an actual Radiocam, and I like to use that to show the area around, to give context, if you will. And you could use that in a live streaming setup, but you could also use that to show your lab, to show the office space. Maybe it's hard to hear that, but some students, they have no idea how that whole university thing is going, especially if they cannot go to class. Give them context, and I sometimes hear that classes are not engaging enough or students cannot socialize. With a bigger angle, with a Radiocam, you can give them that context, the classroom maybe that is missing. And maybe if you show a little bit more context, a little bit more of your workspace, then it's easier for students to do the same. The third one is what I call a flying cam or a desk cam. It's quite easy to say, okay, let's talk about computers, and here's a slide of a computer I found at Wikipedia, and now we have a look on the computer. Or you can actually show your students the computer or the component or any tangible object you're talking about, being it a chemistry lab component or something technical. I know it's quite hard for you out there who study political science because you cannot put injustice on the table. So this flying cam is really about show and tell instead of only tell. And I know it's quite hard if you have an intangible object and if you want just to analyze a text, but maybe the next perspective is more of that repertoire. It's the classic whiteboard. You stand in front of a whiteboard and record yourself. And although it has its pitfalls, I do like the approach to really show how a structural equation model is drafted, how a basic analysis is done, but please don't overdo it. I sometimes see hours, literally hours of footage, people standing in front of a whiteboard. Use a Zoom digital whiteboard if you can, because after, I would say, 6 to 8 minutes, we students get really tired. Sometimes you cannot read what's written. For some introductions or some approaches, it's totally fitting, so please use the whiteboard, but don't overdo it. I have a different version to the whiteboard lovers out there. It's called a POV or a point of view, and I just strapped an action cam on my head, and yeah, it looks a little bit silly maybe, but you put the perspective literally into the learner one, and I think it's quite nice if you show around. Maybe you have a lab tour, maybe you have some heavy equipment, maybe you can show the campus. You know, you make it more viable to connect to what you say instead of putting out there the millionth slide and just say, okay, here it is. You literally put yourself into that POV of the learner. Then we have another classic approach, the picture-in-picture. This is very common among streamers, but sometimes I see recorded lectures. I would recommend to make your image or your video a little bit bigger so that we can actually see you. I know it's like very tempting to put yourself very tiny into the last corner, but imagine you would watch the video on smartphone. It's quite hard and you would waste the space. So 1 to 2/3, maybe like at least 20% of you up there, because once again, people or educators complain about the lack of interaction, but maybe you have to do the first step. I know it's hard, but if you show yourself more often, then it's easier for us students to do the same. And another reminder, a PowerPoint audiobook might be quite tempting as well, but the social component and the human face is still worth to see, is still worth to hear. So just another reason to put you out there. When I'm asking my fellow students, they say, yeah, it's helpful to see the lecturer's face. The last perspective is a 50-50 component. You could put yourself right next to the slides, especially if it's about something that you want to emphasize, and it's just about mixing it up. I'm not telling you to make always the flying desk cam. I'm not saying you should always do the Radiocam, but having another, just one more perspective is already so much better than having one dull whiteboard approach. So feel free to mix the formats you're doing with it. And this last perspective is a good ending as well. If that was helpful, let me know. And if you want to see some of those camera angles and perspectives put into real scenarios, check out my Twitch stream. Until then, I wish you great lectures and great videos. See you the next time. Gude out from my side.